Captain Jake stood at the large window of his ship and watched space bend in front of him. The stars twisted and stretched like paint being stirred, then snapped back into normal points of light. But now there were new shapes among them. Huge ships that looked like they were made of crystal and metal floated where empty space had been just seconds before. "Sir, we're getting signals from the alien fleet," said Lieutenant Dan Carter from his seat at the communication station. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. "They want to talk." Jake had been waiting for this moment his entire life. So had everyone else on Earth. For hundreds of years, humans had looked up at the stars and wondered if they were alone. Now they had their answer floating right in front of them. "Put them through," Jake said, straightening his uniform. Behind him, Dr. Lisa Grant moved closer to her equipment. She was the best alien language expert Earth had, even though she had never actually met an alien before today. The main screen filled with an image that made everyone on the bridge hold their breath. The creature looking back at them was beautiful in a way that hurt to see. Its skin seemed to glow with soft blue light, and its eyes were like looking into deep water. When it spoke, the words came out as music. "Greetings, young ones of the third planet," the alien said. The translation system turned its musical voice into clear English. "I am Ambassador of the Confederation. We welcome you to the greater galaxy." Dr. Grant leaned forward, her fingers flying over her tablet as she recorded everything. This was the most important conversation in human history, and she was not going to miss a single word. "I am Captain Jake of the Earth vessel Aurora," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice calm. "We are honored to meet you." The alien's face changed in what might have been a smile. "Your world is young and fresh, Captain. Your people have just learned to leave your home planet. This is a wonderful time for any species. We remember when we were like you, taking our first steps into the stars." Commander Alex Stone, who stood near the back of the bridge, frowned at those words. Something about the way the alien said young bothered him, but he could not put his finger on what. "We have watched your progress with great interest," Ambassador continued. "Your people show promise, but the galaxy can be dangerous for those who do not understand its ways. This is why the Confederation exists. We guide and protect younger species as they grow." "What kind of guidance?" Jake asked. The alien's image shifted, and suddenly the screen showed a map of their part of the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems were marked with different colors. "The green systems belong to member species of the Confederation," explained. "They enjoy our protection and share in our knowledge. The red systems are dangerous areas where hostile forces live. The yellow systems are neutral territory." Jake looked at the map and felt his heart sink. Earth's system was deep in yellow territory, surrounded by red zones on all sides. "As you can see, your position is not safe," the ambassador said. "But we can offer you protection. Membership in the Confederation comes with many benefits. We can share technology that will solve your energy problems, cure your diseases, and help you explore the stars safely." Dr. Grant looked up from her tablet. "What would membership cost us?" she asked. "Very little," said smoothly. "Some resource sharing agreements. A few territorial concessions to ensure proper security. And of course, you would need to accept Confederation oversight of any expansion beyond your home system. We have learned that younger species can make dangerous mistakes if left to explore on their own." Commander Stone stepped forward. "You keep calling us a young species. How old is the Confederation?" For just a moment, the alien's glowing features seemed to flicker. "We have guided the galaxy for many thousands of your years, Commander. We have seen species rise and fall. We have learned from their mistakes." "What happened to the species that fell?" Stone asked. "Some destroyed themselves through war or carelessness," replied. "Others were destroyed by forces they did not understand. This is why guidance is so important. The galaxy was not always as peaceful as it is now under Confederation rule." Dr. Grant had been studying the aliens' words and body language carefully. Something was wrong with this conversation, but she could not figure out what. The ambassador seemed nervous when they asked about history. "Tell us about these forces that destroyed other species," she said. "What should we be afraid of?" The alien was quiet for a long moment. "There are old legends," it finally said. "Stories of a terrible species that once ruled the galaxy through fear and violence. They called themselves the Ancients, but that was long ago. They vanished into the darkness of space, and we have built a better galaxy in their absence." "What were they like?" Jake asked. "Monsters," said quickly. "Beings of pure destruction who cared nothing for the peace we have created. But they are gone now. The Confederation has made sure of that. This is why we must work together to keep the galaxy safe from such horrors." Dr. Grant made a note on her tablet. The way the alien talked about these ancients did not sound like old legends. It sounded like recent fear. "We would like some time to consider your offer," Jake said diplomatically. "Of course," the ambassador replied. "But do not take too long. The galaxy is becoming more dangerous, and young species need protection now more than ever. We will remain in your system for one of your weeks to answer any questions." The communication ended, and the bridge was quiet for a moment. "Sir," Dr. Grant said slowly, "I think they're lying about something." "What makes you say that?" Jake asked. "They know more about these ancients than they're telling us. And did you notice how they kept calling us young? It felt like they were trying to convince themselves as much as us." Commander Stone nodded. "Something about this whole thing feels wrong. Why would an advanced civilization be so worried about protecting one small planet?" Jake looked back out at the crystal ships floating in space near his vessel. They were beautiful and clearly more advanced than anything humans had ever built. But Dr. Grant was right. Something was not adding up. "Keep monitoring their communications," he told his crew, "and send a message back to Earth Command. Tell them we need more time to study this offer." He did not know it yet, but that decision to wait would save humanity from making the biggest mistake in their history. They were not the benevolent protectors they claimed to be, and Earth was not the young world they believed it was. The truth was buried deep beneath the surface of the planet below, waiting for someone to dig it up. And when they did, everything the galaxy thought it knew about humans would change forever. Dr. Bell wiped the sweat from his face and looked down into the hole his team had been digging for 3 months. The desert sun was hot, but that was not why his hands were shaking. 20 feet below the sand, they had found something that should not exist. "Hand me the light," he called to his assistant Jenny. She passed down the powerful flashlight and pointed it at the wall they had uncovered. The metal surface was smooth and perfect, without a single scratch or mark of age, but according to their tests, it was over 5,000 years old. "This is impossible," Jenny said as she climbed down into the dig site. "Look at these joints. They're welded together with some kind of technology we don't even have today." Ran his fingers along the strange symbols carved into the metal. They were not like any ancient writing he had ever seen. They looked more like computer code than words. "We need to call Professor Adams. She needs to see this." 3 days later, Professor Kate Adams arrived at the dig site with a truck full of equipment. She was the best ancient language expert in the world, but when she saw the symbols on the metal wall, she felt like a student again. "These are not random marks," she told as she photographed each symbol. "They follow mathematical patterns. Look here and here. The same sequence repeats every 12 symbols but with small changes each time. It's like a computer program." "A computer program from 5,000 years ago?" Jenny asked. Kate did not answer right away. She was too busy staring at one particular set of symbols that made her stomach twist with worry. She had seen something like them before, in a classified report about the alien visitors currently orbiting Earth. Whilst team worked in the Middle East, similar discoveries were happening all over the world. In the Amazon rainforest, Dr. Peter found metal tools buried under ancient trees. The tools were made from materials that did not exist in nature. When his team tested them, they found the same strange symbols had discovered. In Tibet, archaeologist Susan Price uncovered something even more shocking. Hidden in a cave high in the mountains, her team found star charts carved into stone. But these were not simple drawings of constellations. They were detailed maps of solar systems that humans had only discovered in the last 50 years. How could ancient people know about planets around other stars? Susan asked her team leader over the radio. Some of these star systems are hundreds of light years away. We only found them with our most powerful telescopes. The answer came from Egypt, where Dr. Carl Johnson's team made the most incredible discovery of all. Deep under the sand near the Great Pyramid, they found a chamber filled with machines. The machines were made of crystal and metal, just like the alien ships orbiting Earth. But these machines were thousands of years old. "Get everyone out of here," Carl told his team when they first entered the chamber. "And call the government. This is way above our level." But the machines were not dangerous. In fact, when Dr. Johnson touched one of the crystal surfaces, it lit up with soft blue light. Symbols appeared in the air above the machine, rotating slowly like a hologram. The symbols were the same ones had found in Iraq and Peter had discovered in Brazil. Professor Adams flew to Egypt as soon as she heard about the discovery. When she saw the crystal machines, her worst fears were confirmed. These symbols were almost identical to the ones in the classified reports about the language. "We need to keep this secret," she told Dr. Johnson. "The government cannot know about this connection, not yet." "Why not?" he asked. "Because if these machines are connected to the aliens, then everything they told us about being our protectors might be a lie." Kate spent 3 days working with the crystal machines, trying to understand their purpose. The machines seemed to respond to human touch, lighting up and displaying information when people came near them. But the information was coded in the strange symbol language that she was slowly learning to read. On the 4th day, she made a breakthrough. One of the machines was not just displaying symbols, it was displaying a message, a warning. "The Watchers return," she translated slowly, her voice shaking. "The children of Earth must remember what they truly are." "Watchers?" Dr. Johnson asked. "You mean the aliens?" Kate nodded, but she was looking at another part of the message. "There's more. It says something about sleeping guardians and awakening protocols, and there's a word here that keeps repeating." She paused, checking her translation 3 times to make sure she was reading it correctly. "Ancients." The same word the ambassador had used when talking about the monsters who once ruled the galaxy. Dr. Johnson stepped back from the machine. "You're saying these ancient humans knew about the aliens, that they fought them before?" "I think it's worse than that," Kate said quietly. "I think the ancient humans were the ancients the aliens are afraid of." Meanwhile, back at the dig site in Iraq, Bell's team had broken through the metal wall and found what lay behind it. It was not another room or a buried building. It was a vast underground city, stretching as far as their lights could reach. The buildings were made of the same perfect metal, and every surface was covered with the mysterious symbols. But the most shocking discovery was not the city itself. It was what they found in the center of the city. A statue, 50 feet tall, carved from black stone. The statue showed a human figure in strange armor, holding what looked like a weapon that shot light instead of bullets. At the base of the statue were words carved in ancient languages from around the world. Could read the Latin inscription clearly. "Here lies the tomb of the star commanders, guardians of Earth, protectors of the galaxy, who sleep until the Watchers return." Jenny took pictures of everything while trying to process what they had found. Ancient humans with technology more advanced than anything that existed today. Underground cities built thousands of years ago. Weapons that shot light. Star maps of solar systems they should not have known about. Jenny called from across the chamber. "You need to see this." She was standing in front of a wall covered with carved images. The images showed spaceships that looked exactly like the alien vessels currently orbiting Earth. But in these ancient carvings, the ships were not peaceful. They were attacking human cities, and humans were fighting back with weapons of light. "This is a history lesson," Jenny said. "The aliens have been here before, and last time we beat them." Stared at the carvings, trying to understand what they meant for the present situation. If these images were true, then they were not humanity's first contact with aliens. They were enemies returning for a second round of war. He pulled out his satellite phone and dialed Professor Adams' number. When she answered, he could hear the excitement in her voice. "Kate, you need to get to Iraq right away," he said. "I found something that changes everything. The aliens lied to us. They've been here before, and I think they're planning to finish what they started thousands of years ago." On the other end of the line, Kate Adams looked at the crystal machine still glowing in front of her. The warning message was clearer now. "When the Watchers return, wake the Guardians. The children of Earth must reclaim their birthright among the stars." She said slowly, "I think you're right, and I think I know how to stop them." Captain Jake watched the alien ships move into new positions around Earth. What had started as a friendly visit was beginning to look like something else entirely. The vessels now surrounded every major city on the planet, and their weapons were pointed downward instead of outward. "Sir, we're picking up more alien communications," Lieutenant Dan Carter said from his station. "But they're not talking to us anymore. They're talking to each other, and they don't know we can hear them." Jake moved to stand behind Dan's chair. "What are they saying?" Dan's face was pale as he read the translation on his screen. "They're talking about something called Operation Harvest. They want to complete planetary surveys before the humans become aware of their true nature." "True nature?" Jake asked. "What does that mean?" Before Dan could answer, Dr. Lisa Grant burst onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of data. "Captain, we have a serious problem. I've been analyzing the alien communication patterns, and I found something terrible." She activated the main screen and showed a series of graphs and charts. "Look at this. Every time we ask about the ancients, their stress indicators spike. Their heart rate increases, their voice patterns change. They're not just hiding information about the ancients, they're terrified of them." Commander Alex Stone joined the conversation. "But they told us the ancients were destroyed long ago." "That's what they want us to believe," Dr. Grant said. "But listen to this." She played a recording of one of the intercepted alien communications. The musical language filled the bridge, followed by the computer translation. "Genetic scanning is 70% complete. No activation signatures detected yet, but Command warns that proximity to the sites may trigger dormant sequences. If they remember what they are, we will face another ancient uprising." The bridge was silent for a long moment. Finally, Jake spoke. "They think we're the ancients." "Not exactly," Dr. Grant said. "They think we're related to the ancients, and they're here to make sure we never find out." Lieutenant Dan Carter looked up from his station. "Sir, I'm getting a priority message from Earth. The archaeological teams have found something big." The message was from Professor Kate Adams. Her voice was excited but scared as she spoke through the communication system. "Captain, you need to know what we've discovered. The ancient sites all over Earth are not just ruins. They're connected to each other through some kind of underground network, and that network is starting to wake up." Dr. Bell's voice came through next. "The crystal machines in Egypt are responding to human presence. Every time someone touches them, they get brighter, and the symbols on the walls are changing. New messages are appearing." "What kind of messages?" Jake asked. Professor Adams answered. "Instructions, technical specifications, and warnings about something called the Empire." Commander Stone stepped forward. "Empire, they told us they were a peaceful confederation." They lied about that too, Kate's voice continued. According to these ancient records that have conquered dozens of star systems, they find young civilizations, offer them protection and technology, then slowly take control until the species becomes their slaves. Dr. Grant was studying her alien communication data again. That matches what I'm seeing in their transmissions. They keep referring to humans as potential agricultural stock and industrial resources. Jake felt anger building in his chest. The beautiful aliens with their musical voices and promises of protection were planning to turn humanity into slaves. What else do the ancient records say? Bell's voice came through the speakers. They say that humans are the descendants of the ancients. Our ancestors ruled the galaxy thousands of years ago, but they went into hiding when their empire fell apart. They left these sites as warnings and weapons for their children to find when they returned. Weapons? Jake asked. The underground city I found in Iraq is not just ruins, explained. It's a military base. There are rooms full of equipment that looks like it was built yesterday, even though it's thousands of years old. And there are other rooms with what look like sleeping chambers. Professor Adams' voice was barely a whisper. Some of the chambers are occupied. The communication went silent for a moment, then Kate continued. There are humans in the sleeping chambers, hundreds of them. They look exactly like us, but they're wearing armor and carrying weapons I don't recognize. The crystal machines say they've been sleeping for over 3,000 years, waiting for the right signal to wake up. Dr. Grant looked at her captain. Sir, they are scanning for genetic markers. What if they're looking for people who can activate these ancient systems? Jake made a decision that would change everything. Dan, send a coded message to all Earth military forces. Tell them to prepare for the possibility that our alien visitors are not friendly, and patch me through to the archaeological teams. When the connection was established, Jake spoke directly to Professor Adams. Kate, can you activate those sleeping chambers? I think so, she replied. But I don't know what will happen when those people wake up. They've been asleep for thousands of years. They might not even remember who they are. We're about to find out, Jake said. Because they just changed course. They're heading for the archaeological sites. I think they know what you found. On the planet below, alarms began sounding at dig sites around the world. Shuttles were descending from orbit, heading directly for the ancient ruins. The aliens were no longer pretending to be peaceful visitors. They were moving to secure the sites before humans could learn the truth about their heritage. In the underground chamber in Iraq, Dr. Bell watched the crystal machines suddenly flare with brilliant light. The symbols on the walls were moving now, rearranging themselves into new patterns, and from somewhere deep in the ancient city, he could hear the sound of machinery starting up after thousands of years of silence. Jenny, get everyone out of here, he shouted to his assistant. Something big is about to happen. But Jenny was staring at one of the sleeping chambers. Look, the person inside is opening their eyes. The chamber filled with mist as ancient seals were broken. When it cleared, a woman sat up slowly, looking around with eyes that held the memory of stars. She was wearing armor that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone used to commanding fleets. How long have I slept? She asked in perfect English. 3,000 years, managed to say. The woman nodded as if this was not surprising. Then the Watchers have returned. Are the children of Earth ready to remember who they are? Before could answer, explosions echoed through the underground city. They had arrived, and they were not planning to negotiate. The woman from the sleeping chamber stood up, and her armor began to glow with the same light as the crystal machines. I am General Ellen Price, last commander of the ancient fleet, and it is time for the children of Earth to reclaim their birthright. Above ground, Jake watched ships descend toward the archaeological sites like predators diving on prey. But from deep beneath the earth, new signals were starting to broadcast. Ancient systems were coming online all over the planet, and something that had been sleeping for was finally waking up. The real war for Earth was about to begin, and humanity was about to discover that they were not the helpless young species they believed them to be. They were the children of the galaxy's former rulers, and their inheritance was finally being claimed. The first human to change was a construction worker named Mike Torres. He was helping to evacuate people from Mexico City when the ships began landing. A piece of falling metal from a damaged building was about to crush a small child when Mike reached out to stop it. Instead of bouncing off the metal, his hand passed through it like it was made of water. Then the metal became solid again, but now it was exactly the shape Mike needed to protect the child. Mike stared at his hands in shock. He had just changed the metal by touching it. Around him, other people were discovering similar abilities. Maria Santos, a nurse in the local hospital, found that she could heal cuts and broken bones just by placing her hands on injured people. The wounds would close up and the bones would mend in seconds. Dr. Lisa Grant was monitoring these reports from the Aurora when she realized what was happening. "Captain, we're getting similar reports from all over the world. People near the ancient sites are developing abilities that shouldn't be possible." Jake looked at the data streaming across his screens. In Egypt, a teacher named Gary Miller was processing information faster than any computer. In Tibet, a mountain guide named was moving objects with his mind. In Brazil, a jungle researcher named Amy Clark was communicating with animals. "It's the ancient sites," Dr. Grant continued. "Being near the awakening technology is triggering something in human DNA. The genetic markers that we're looking for. We're all carrying dormant capabilities from our ancestors." The response was immediate and brutal. Their ships began firing energy weapons at the humans showing these new abilities. But something strange happened. The weapons that could destroy buildings and melt steel barely scratched the awakened humans. It was as if they instinctively knew how to protect themselves. In the underground chamber in Iraq, General Ellen Price watched the reports with satisfaction. "The awakening spreads," she told Dr. Bell. "Each human who remembers their true nature makes it easier for others to follow." "But they are fighting back," said, pointing to his tablet showing the attacks around the world. "Their ships are targeting anyone with abilities." Ellen smiled, and for a moment her eyes flashed with the same blue light as the crystal machines. "Then it is time to even the odds." She touched one of the walls, and the ancient symbols began glowing brighter. "Tell your captain to bring his ship to these coordinates. It is time for him to meet his real vessel." Jake received the message just as fighters were closing in on the Aurora. His human ship was fast, but it was no match for alien technology. Then Lieutenant Dan Carter called out from his station. "Sir, something is rising from the ocean. It's massive." On the main screen, they watched as water fell away from something that had been hidden beneath the Pacific for thousands of years. It was a ship, but unlike anything humans had ever built. It was 3 times the size of the Aurora and seemed to be made of the same crystal and metal as the ancient machines. As it rose into the sky, it pulsed with blue light. "Captain," came a voice over their communications. It was General Ellen Price. "Welcome to the flagship of the ancient fleet. She has been waiting for you." Jake made a decision that felt both terrifying and completely natural. "All hands, prepare to transfer to the ancient vessel. We're going home." The transfer was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The moment he stepped aboard the ship seemed to recognize him. Panels lit up at his touch, and information flowed directly into his mind. He knew how to fly this ship even though he had never seen anything like it before. Dr. Grant was amazed by what she found in the ship's medical bay. The technology was thousands of years ahead of anything on Earth, but she understood how to use it perfectly. "It's like the knowledge is already in my head," she told Jake. "I just had to remember it." Commander Stone discovered that the ship's weapons were not just more powerful than human technology. They were more powerful than technology too. Sir, these energy cannons can punch through their shields like they're made of paper. But the most important discovery came when Jake sat in the captain's chair. The moment he touched the control surfaces, his mind connected with a vast network of similar ships hidden all over the galaxy. Dozens of them were waking up, responding to the call of awakened human crews. The admiral commanding the invasion fleet watched in horror as ship after ship rose from planets they thought they had conquered long ago. These were not the primitive vessels of a young species. These were the warships of the ancients, and they were crewed by humans who remembered how to use them. "Impossible," the admiral said in his musical language. "We destroyed their empire. We scattered their fleets. How can they still exist?" His science officer provided the answer the admiral did not want to hear. "They did not run away, Admiral. They went to sleep, and now they are waking up." The first battle was not really a battle at all. The ships that had seemed so advanced were suddenly outmatched by vessels that thought and moved like living things. The human crews did not just pilot their ships. They merged with them, becoming part of something greater than either could be alone. Mike Torres, the construction worker who could reshape metal, found himself aboard a ship where his abilities were amplified 1,000 times. He could rebuild damaged sections of the hull just by thinking about it. Maria Santos discovered that her healing powers worked on the ship's living crystal systems, keeping them healthy and strong. Gary Miller, the teacher with enhanced mental abilities, became the fleet's communication center. His mind could process information from dozens of ships at once and coordinate their movements like a conductor leading an orchestra. But the real surprise came when ordinary humans who had not shown any special abilities also boarded the ancient ships. The moment they connected with the vessels, they too began to remember capabilities they never knew they had. Every human carried the genetic heritage of the ancients. They just needed the right trigger to unlock it. Captain Jake found himself commanding not just one ship, but an entire fleet. The knowledge of ancient battle tactics flowed through his mind like water, and he understood strategies that had been developed over thousands of years of galactic warfare. "All ships, this is Admiral," he said, the new title feeling natural on his tongue. "They came here expecting to find helpless children. Let's show them what the children of Earth have grown up to become." The fleet that had seemed so overwhelming just hours before was now retreating toward the edge of the solar system. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. Earth had been one planet in a galaxy controlled by the Empire. Now that humanity was awake, that empire was about to face its worst nightmare. The return of the ancients. In the command center of the General Ellen Price stood next to Jake and watched the enemy ships flee. "The first phase is complete," she said, "but there will be more. They will bring their entire fleet to stop us." "Let them come," Jake replied, feeling the power of the ancient ship flowing through him. It's time the galaxy remembered why they used to fear the humans. Around Earth, more ships were rising from hidden places. Ancient bases were coming online, and across the galaxy, other human colonies that had been sleeping were beginning to stir. The children of Earth were coming home to claim their inheritance among the stars. The Emperor stood on the bridge of his massive warship and watched 1,000 vessels emerge from hyperspace around Earth's solar system. This was the largest fleet the Empire had assembled in over 2,000 years. Every ship was armed with weapons designed specifically to fight the ancients. Every crew member had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Begin the final assault," the Emperor commanded. "The ancient bloodline ends today." But as his fleet moved toward Earth, something impossible happened. Space itself began to change around them. Stars that had been distant points of light suddenly became bright suns. Planets appeared where empty space had been moments before, and from behind each planet came ships that glowed with the blue light of ancient technology. Admiral Jake stood on the bridge of the and smiled. They had expected to find one planet defended by a handful of awakened humans. Instead, they had flown into a trap that had been 3,000 years in the making. "All fleets report ready," Lieutenant Dan Carter announced. "We have ships from 47 star systems. The entire ancient defense network is online." Dr. Lisa Grant was monitoring communications from across the galaxy. "Jake, we're getting reports from everywhere. Humans on planets we didn't even know existed are waking up. The colonies are in chaos." The truth was spreading across the galaxy like wildfire. They had not destroyed the ancient empire. They had conquered planets where humans had chosen to sleep and wait. For thousands of years, humans had lived as slaves and servants, not knowing who they really were. But the awakening of Earth had triggered something in all of them. General Ellen Price joined Jake on the bridge as the two fleets faced each other across space. "The Emperor will try to negotiate now," she said. "He knows he cannot win this battle." She was right. A communication request came from the flagship and Jake accepted it. The Emperor appeared on the main screen, but he no longer looked like the beautiful, glowing being humans had first met. His true form was revealed now, pale, weak, and desperately afraid. "Admiral," the Emperor said, his musical voice now sounding hollow, "we can discuss terms. The Empire is willing to share the galaxy. There is no need for war." Jake looked at the alien who had planned to enslave his entire species. "You came to our home pretending to be friends. You tried to turn us into slaves. You conquered our people on dozens of worlds. Why should we negotiate with you?" "Because we can offer you something you want," the Emperor replied quickly. "Knowledge, technology. We have learned much in the time since your empire fell. We can teach you things your ancestors never knew." General Ellen Price stepped forward so the Emperor could see her. "Hello, old enemy. Do you remember me?" The Emperor's face went white with terror. "Ellen Price, you should be dead." "I was sleeping," she replied calmly, "waiting for this moment, waiting for our children to grow strong enough to reclaim what you stole from us." "We never stole anything," the Emperor protested. "Your empire was corrupt. You ruled through fear and violence. We brought peace to the galaxy." Ellen laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Peace? You call slavery peace? You call conquest peace? We may have made mistakes in the past, but we never turned entire species into property." Jake listened to this exchange and began to understand the real history of the galaxy. The ancient human empire had not been perfect. They had become proud and arrogant, believing that their power gave them the right to control others. But they had never been the monsters they claimed they were. "Your ancestors chose to end their empire rather than continue making the same mistakes," Ellen continued. "They went asleep, hoping their children would be wiser, and they were right." The Emperor looked confused. "What do you mean?" Jake answered him. "We're not going to rebuild the old empire. We're not going to rule the galaxy through fear. But we're also not going to let you continue enslaving innocent people." Dr. Grant had been analyzing data from across the galaxy during the conversation. "Jake, the empire is falling apart. Their slave worlds are rebelling. Their own people are starting to question why they needed an empire in the first place." On his command screen, Jake could see the reports flooding in. On planet after planet, humans were remembering who they were and standing up to their masters. But they were not alone. Other species that had been conquered by the Empire were joining the rebellion. The galaxy was waking up to the truth about their supposed protectors. "You have a choice," Jake told the Emperor. "Surrender now and help us build something better, or fight and lose everything you've built." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Around his flagship, Jake could see the fleet beginning to break apart. Ships were leaving formation and heading back toward their home systems. The crews were choosing their families over their empire. "If we surrender," the Emperor finally asked, "what happens to my people?" Ellen Price answered, "The same thing that happens to everyone else. You get to be free. free to choose your own path, free to make your own mistakes, free to grow into something better than you are now. And if we choose to stay and fight, Jake's voice was firm but not angry, then you'll lose, and a lot of people will die who don't need to. Your empire is already over. Your own people are abandoning it. The only question is whether you'll accept that peacefully or force us to end it for you. The Emperor looked around his bridge at his officers. Jake could see the fear and uncertainty in their faces. They had spent their entire lives believing they were the rightful rulers of the galaxy. Now they were discovering that their empire was built on lies, and their subjects were stronger than they had ever imagined. "We surrender," the Emperor said quietly. Across the galaxy, the news spread instantly. The empire had fallen not through conquest, but through the simple truth that no one had the right to own another person's freedom. Species that had been enslaved for thousands of years were suddenly free to choose their own destiny. But Jake knew that freedom was only the first step. "Now comes the hard part," he told his crew, "building something better." Dr. Grant smiled as she watched celebration broadcasts from dozens of worlds. "The galaxy is free, but what do we do with that freedom?" General Ellen Price had an answer. "We learn, we grow, we help each other instead of trying to control each other, and if we make mistakes, we admit them and try to do better." Jake looked out at the stars surrounding Earth and felt a weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Humanity had reclaimed their place in the galaxy, but that place came with obligations. They would need to help rebuild worlds damaged by centuries of slavery. They would need to prevent new empires from rising to replace the old one. Most importantly, they would need to prove that power could be used to protect instead of control. "Send a message to all human fleets," Jake ordered. "We're going home, but not to rule, to serve. The galaxy belongs to everyone who calls it home, and our job is to make sure it stays that way." As the ancient human ships began to disperse across the galaxy, each carrying crews ready to help rebuild what had been broken, Jake felt something his ancestors had never experienced. The peace that came from using strength to protect the weak instead of dominating them. The children of Earth had come home to the stars, not as conquerors but as guardians, and the galaxy would never be the same.